Whenever I kill someone, I can inherit all the knowledge in the other person's mind. On the eve of the college entrance examination, I killed my best friend because her academic performance has always been very good. After the college entrance examination, I took the place of my best friend, successfully admitted to a QUNIV RSITY.ONE. I have a secret superpower. That's every time I kill someone, I can inherit all the knowledge in the other person's mind. The first time I realized I had this superpower was during the summer vacation, when I was 10 years old. My mother was too busy with work and couldn't take care of me, so she sent me to my grandma's house in the countryside to stay temporarily. To be honest, one of the things I hated most when I was a child was being sent to my grandma's house. The countryside is poor, broken, and not fun at all. And just after 8 o'clock every night, my grandma is ready to go to bed. Because of this, quarrels often broke out between me and my grandma. There were several times when my grandma's wrinkled old face turned purple with anger. It made her look like she was about to faint. My mother always taught me not to make my grandma angry. Because my grandma has a bad heart. Always carry a small medicine bottle with you for first aid. Of course I know this. Then, one very ordinary night, when I had an argument with my grandma again, with full of malice, I cursed at her viciously. "Old witch, why don't you die?" When my grandma heard this, her eyes widened in shock, looking at me as if she had encountered a monster. You. She was so angry that she was trembling with anger at my words. She hesitated for a long time, but she couldn't even utter a complete sentence. Then I saw my grandma's eyes suddenly widen, her body arched up in pain, she raised her withered right hand to press her heart, and she fell to the ground. "Medicine, my medicine." Grandma raised her hands with difficulty and reached into her pocket. I took the first step and took out my grandma's small medicine bottle from my pocket. Holding the small medicine bottle in my hand, I quickly took a few steps back and looked at my grandma on the ground expressionlessly. To this day, I still remember the expression on my grandma's face. Grandma's lips turned purple and she raised her face. There was a hint of surprise in those deep-set eye sockets at first. After a few seconds, the surprise turned into disbelief and panic. Grandma seemed to realize what I wanted to do. Her survival instinct drove her to get up from the ground. But the harder Grandma struggled, the harder she gasped. After what seemed to me an extremely long time, Grandma's movements froze for a moment. She was lying on her stomach, her arms stretched out straight in my direction. Like a frozen ice sculpture. The body gradually became colder and became motionless. The dim room fell into dead silence. I stepped on my stiff legs, walked to the landline, and dialed the emergency number. Waiting for the ambulance to arrive. I walked over to a cabinet filled with various medicine bottles. Spread out your sweaty palms. Put the small medicine bottle in your hand on the cabinet. Then I swung my arms. The little medicine bottles clattered to the ground. When the piercing whistle sounded from outside the house. I suddenly collapsed to the ground. Pretending to be panicked, he cried at the top of his lungs. TWO. Medical staff confirmed Grandma's death on the spot. After my mother rushed to the hospital, she kept comforting me as I cried. She didn't blame me for failing to find the emergency medicine on the cabinet in time when my grandma fell ill. Everyone thought it was just a tragic accident. And I noticed that things started to go wrong after my grandma's funeral. I suddenly found that I had mastered some skills that I had never been exposed to before. Such as cooking, and even some knowledge about how to farm. But I don't have any memory of it. The knowledge seemed to appear in my brain out of thin air. Until one day later, I took a bite of the shredded potatoes I fried. It tastes exactly like my grandma's stir-fry. It was then that I suddenly understood. The extra knowledge in my brain comes from my grandma. It was at that moment. An extremely crazy and unreasonable guess emerged. For a long time. I have always kept this guess in my heart. Never told anyone. However, this guess is like a seed. It sprouted quietly. My grades were not good in junior high school. Even getting into an ordinary high school is difficult. It happened that at that time, a girl in our class, who excelled in studies, lived in the same community as me. We often ride to and from school together. To be honest, I envy her. With her academic performance, it would be easy to get admitted to a key high school in our city. One day before the high school entrance examination, I sneaked into the carport during recess and accidentally broke the girl's brakes. It's hard for me to describe why I behaved this way. I don't think I really wanted to kill her. I just wanted to take this opportunity. To verify the guess that has been lingering in my mind for a long time. On the way home, I didn't know whether it was my luck or the girl's bad luck. When we passed an intersection, we happened to encounter a large truck running a red light. The girl didn't stop the car and was knocked directly in front of me. She died on the spot. The driver of that large truck was driving while fatigued. When the accident happened, he had not slept for almost 2 days. All in all, this is a complete tragedy. It has nothing to do with me. Later, I sat in the high school entrance exam room. In the past, questions that were as difficult to understand as a book from heaven became extremely simple overnight. After the high school entrance examination results come out, I was admitted to the key high school that I had always dreamed of. Ranking 10th in my grade. Everyone thought I was overachieving and envied my good luck. I just smiled and never refuted. They are right. I do have better luck.thre.hal. A month before the college entrance examination, most of the students in the class are preparing for the exam. Only I am different. I sit in class every day, staring at the textbook. The question I think about the most is how to kill Chen Rong without leaving any trace. In the eyes of others, I am Chen Rong's best friend. During the 3 years of high school, the two of us were almost inseparable on campus. And we didn't forget to call each other even when we went to the bathroom. Chen Rong has excellent grades, fleet appearance and cheerful personality. He is the typical, good student, in the eyes of teachers and parents. I have average grades, average appearance, and a bit of an introvert personality. In short, Chen Rong and I are two completely different types of people. The reason why Chen Rong chose to be friends with me is precisely because I am too ordinary. It is my ordinariness that can bring out her excellence. I have known for a long time that Chen Rong often speaks ill of me behind my back. She said I was not very bright and looked stupid. There is always an unpleasant medicinal smell on my body. If she didn't see me as pitiful, she would have broken up with me long ago. Chen Rong is right. My family is quite pitiful. My dad died when I was very young. Over the years, my mother worked hard to raise me up by herself. Eventually, she became ill due to overwork and could only rely on long-term medication to recuperate her body. But it doesn't matter anymore. I don't care at all what Chen Rong thinks of me. After all, I don't really want to be friends with her. I noticed Chen Rong for the first time. It was during the preliminary examination when I first entered high school. She got first place in her grade. That's when it started. I silently added her to my candidate list. Of course, I was also worried that Chen Rong's academic performance would decline in the next 3 years. Although my reserve list is updated every semester. But it will still be troublesome if you change the candidates at will in the middle. Fortunately, Chen Rong's academic performance has always been stable. Until the last mock test before the college entrance examination, she never fell out of the top 5 in her grade. And she has no plans to be eliminated in the competition. It can be said that for me, Chen Rong is the perfect candidate. Can I go from an ordinary undergraduate degree to a key university? It's all up to HE or FOU or I. In fact, it's not like I haven't tried to study seriously. But it is really difficult to excel in studies. Even relying on the foundation laid by that female classmate in junior high school, I could barely survive half a semester. Starting from the first half of the second semester of high school, my grades plummeted. Maybe some people are not born suitable for learning. Anyway, I feel like I'm not the type to study. It would be easier to think about how to kill others. I used my spare time during the 3 years of high school to crazily read various suspense novels. I also watched a lot of documentaries about homicides. I found that the police's detection methods were too powerful. Not only are they thoughtful, but they also possess many high-tech means. It makes criminals almost invisible. I conceived several plans to kill Chen Rong in my mind. But they all feel that it is not ideal and has too many loopholes. Once the police determine that the case is a homicide, they will stick to it and continue to pursue it. So I have to work hard to make Chen Rong's death look like an accident. Just like the previous 2 times. After some hard thinking, I roughly sketched out a plan. Although Chen Rong appears to be a good student on the surface, in fact she will do some outrageous things in pursuit of excitement. For example, dating a gangster boyfriend outside school, or hiding in the toilet and secretly smoking. So I decided to take advantage of this and let Chen Rong go to a dead end. 2 days before leaving school, I kept tapping in Chen Rong's ear, suggesting that we should indulge in some indulgence the night before leaving school. I deliberately asked her if she dared to sneak to the rooftop of the teaching building to drink during evening self-study. At first, Chen Rong was a little hesitant and asked me how I brought alcohol into school. I said, "You are stupid, just ask your day school friends to bring you in." Chen Rong stopped talking now. I didn't continue to persuade her. I just said, "If you don't dare, forget it. I'll go back and do it by myself. I don't want to leave any regrets in my high school life." Who says I don't dare? I'm just wondering what kind of wine I want to buy. Sure enough, Chen Rong took the bait. I continued to lay out the bait and said, "How about buying a few cans of beer?" Chen Rong glanced at me with disdain and said with dignity, "That's so boring. I'll ask my friend to bring a few bottles of whiskey for you to try later." I resisted the urge to laugh out loud, pretended to be very envious, and kept praising her for being so awesome. On the night before leaving school, Chen Rong indeed brought 2 bottles of whiskey, but when we were about to go upstairs to the rooftop, I deliberately grabbed Chen Rong at the stairs and said weakly, "Zero, why don't we forget it? What if the director catches us? It's already this time, what are you afraid of? Even if you get caught, it won't matter. At most, you can just curse a few words. We are about to take the college entrance examination, so we have to take our mood into consideration." Chen Rong grabbed my wrist forcefully. "Hurry up, come up with me." I resisted twice symbolically, and glanced at the surveillance camera at the top of the stairs when I went upstairs. The rooftop door on the top of the building was just wrapped with a chain, and not really locked. I deliberately followed Chen Rong, and waited until she took off the chain and threw it aside. Then I followed her into the rooftop. The cool evening breeze in early summer feels particularly comfortable on my body. Chen Rong seemed to be in a good mood, and extremely excited. She urged me to quickly pour out the snacks I bought from the school supermarket at night. She couldn't wait to uncork the wine, and poured the dark brown liquid into 2 disposable paper cups. Cheers. Chen Rong shouted and drank the wine in the paper cup without paying attention to me. At first I judged from the expression on her face that the wine might not taste very good. I'm still thinking about what if she doesn't want to drink anymore. Fortunately, things went more smoothly than I expected. That night, Chen Rong talked to me a lot. She said that her parents actually had no relationship for a long time, but they still pretended to be affectionate in front of her, which made her feel sick. She said that she has a brother who is 10 years younger than her and is the darling of the whole family. No one cares about her at all. She said that she finally survived the 3 years of high school and was about to be liberated. She said that after the college entrance examination was over, she would go on a graduation trip to the south, and asked me if I wanted to go with her. Chen Rong's cheeks turned red. Her eyes were filled with confusion. She took my hand and apologized to me. She said she shouldn't have spoken ill of me behind my back before. Slurring that I'm her best friend. There was no emotion in my heart. I just felt that she must have drunk too much. In fact, Chen Rong really drank too much. She staggered and fell down uncontrollably. I helped her stand in front of the half-height railing to blow the air. When the rusty railing broke, Chen Rong's body lost balance. In panic, she reached out to me. And I just gave it a little push. Chen Rong's figure disappeared on the edge of the rooftop. There was a dull sound of heavy objects falling to the ground. After a brief silence, there was a commotion downstairs. I took a swig of wine for myself. Then he closed his eyes and collapsed in front of the railing of the rooftop with half of his body exposed. Wait until you hear the sound of noisy footsteps. I reluctantly opened my eyes, and the pale face of the grade director appeared in front of me, like a dead person. When Chen Rong's parents arrived at school, I knelt down in front of them and said with tears that it was all my fault, and that it was all my fault for Chen Rong's death, that I shouldn't have agreed to Chen Rong going to the rooftop to drink. If I could have stopped her, none of this would have happened. Mother Chen wanted to rush towards me like crazy, yelling at me to give her daughter back. The police at the scene held her firmly under control and told her to calm down first. The police called in surveillance footage at the stairwell. The surveillance footage showed that it was Chen Rong who dragged me to the rooftop. The student who helped Chen Rong bring wine and said that Chen Rong took the initiative to ask for his help. The broken railings on the rooftop showed no signs of human damage. There were no signs of a fight on Chen Rong's body. It can be said that the main reason for this tragedy was that Chen Rong violated school rules and regulations and went to the rooftop to drink privately. The secondary reason is that the railings on the rooftop are in disrepair and the school management is improper. Faced with the clear investigation results, Chen Rong's parents did not come to trouble me again. I heard that in order to take into account the impact, the school even paid Chen Rong's parents a large sum of money. After the college entrance examination, I went back to school to receive my diploma, and when I got home, I left the class. I remembered that Chen Rong said on the rooftop that day that she wanted to go on a graduation trip after the college entrance examination. Unfortunately, I don't know which city she wants to go to. I had to wait until I was admitted to college and then slowly help her fulfill this wish. Hope she rests in peace and don't blame me. Of course, if she can't rest in peace, there's nothing I can do about it. Let her be. The night I checked my scores was probably the most stressful day in my life. When the webpage finally refreshed, I looked at my results and cried with joy. You know, watching your best friend fall to his death with your own eyes is very stressful. But for some reason, my mother didn't seem so happy after learning about my college entrance examination results. She also advised me not to apply to a very good school, but to go to an ordinary school. I told her that I wanted to apply for a medical university and study medicine in the future. Unexpectedly, my mother suddenly became very excited. She told me clearly that I would never be allowed to apply for a medical major. When my mother said these words, her expression was so serious that it even scared me. Daughter, Mom doesn't mean anything else. It's just that studying medicine is too tiring. Mom doesn't want to see you working so hard. My mother relaxed, stroked my hair gently, and said, be good, listen to Mom and sign up for a different major. At that time, my mother's health was already very bad and she looked very weak. No matter how much medicine she took, it was of no use. I didn't want to make my mother angry, so I chose finance. I heard that it is easier to make money after graduating from this MAJO or SIX, AFT, or entering college. I felt a little more relaxed. My dormitory relationship is very harmonious. The academic pressure is not as great as it was in high school. Although the grade points are not among the top of the majors, but as long as you can attend class on time, at least you won't fail. I enjoy a busy and fulfilling university life and feel very happy. But in the past 2 years, I don't know if it's my misunderstanding. Every time I go home during the holidays, I always feel that my mother is deliberately alienating me. Moreover, her health was deteriorating, but she stubbornly refused to be hospitalized. In the winter of her sophomore year, she suddenly collapsed at home and was sent to the intensive care unit that night. The doctor told me that my mother's organs had suffered severe organ failure due to overwork, and asked me to be mentally prepared. I stood by the hospital bed, looking at that extremely old face, and my heart ached like a knife. My mother is only over 40 this year, but her hair is gray, and her face is wrinkled, like an old lady. Later in the night, my mother barely opened her eyes through a respirator mask, and tilted her head to look at me. Her lips pursed, as if she had something to say. I quickly held her hand tightly, and put it to her ear, trying to hear what she had to say. But her chat lips just moved, and no words came out. Soon, she took her last breath. A line of clear tears slid down the corner of her eyes. I was so sad that I threw myself on my mother. He burst into tears and burst into tears. I endured my grief and took care of my mother's funeral. Over the years, my mother has been my biggest supporter. Now that my mother is gone, I am left alone. When I returned to my empty home and looked at the pill bottles everywhere in the house, I couldn't help crying again. I packed the items my mother left behind into boxes and put them in her bedroom. In fact, I have considered selling this house, and the money my mother left me will be enough for me to move to another city and start over. But in the end I couldn't make up my mind. There are still traces of my mother here, and I am reluctant to throw them away. As I gradually accepted the fact that my mother had passed away, I thought a lot. For example, should I drop out of school and go back to take the college entrance examination again? I think becoming a doctor or a police officer would make it easier for me to use my abilities. But after some thinking, I still didn't choose to do this. First, I have almost forgotten all my high school knowledge. Second, dropping out of school and returning to high school in my current situation would definitely be very eye-catching. If you use your ability at this time, the risk will be too great. Besides, I don't want to go against my mother's will. Study for a master's degree in law from finance. In this way, if things are exposed in the future, I can protect my rights and interests. It took me a whole year to finally lock in a candidate. Her name is Luki Yankian, and she is a high school classmate of my other roommate. Now he is studying law in the school next door to us. I specially applied for a small account for this purpose. Pretending to be a junior, he went to her online to ask for advice. I learned that there was no hope for her to get into graduate school, so she could only work hard to prepare for the exam. At the same time, I tried my best to avoid any real-life contact with her. Let yourself completely stay out of Luki Yankian's life. In reality, she only know me. To me, this is simply the ideal STAT.SEVN.BITINGL. I cold December. One night a week before the postgraduate entrance examination, wearing a black down jacket, a mask and sunglasses, I stood guard at the gate of the community. According to usual habits, Luki Yankian usually studies at 11 o'clock in the evening. Then he returned to the single room he rented off campus. In order to save money, the community where she rented was very old, and even several street lights were broken. I hid in the shadows on the roadside and waited for about 10 minutes when I heard the sound of hurried footsteps. The flash of the mobile phone swayed in the darkness, making the red down jacket on Luki Yankian particularly conspicuous. After making sure there was no one around, I tightened my grip on the hammer in my pocket and quickly followed Luki Yankian. Before she could react, she groaned and fell to the ground. I first picked up the phone she dropped, turned off the flash, and continued to spread my arms. After finishing my business, I deliberately rummaged through Luki Yankian's pockets and school bag and took away her mobile phone and tablet. Then I climbed over the wall from the back door of the community, bypassed the main road, found a small internet cafe hidden in an alley, and walked straight in. The lights in the internet cafe were dim and noisy, but no one noticed me. The network manager at the front desk didn't even bother to look up at me. I ducked into the bathroom and locked the door behind my back. After all, this is my first time doing it myself. It would be a lie to say I'm not nervous. I wiped off the blood on my down jacket and hammer with a wet wipe, took off my jacket, wrapped it into a ball with various sundries, and threw it outside through the bathroom window. I prepared another set of clothes outside the bathroom window in advance. After changing, I left the bathroom. When I walked to the door of the internet cafe, I deliberately took out a cigarette and put it in my mouth. In a very natural posture, he lowered his head and reached out to cover his face to light the fire. After I walked out of the surveillance area, I stubbed out the cigarette butt and put it in my pocket. Then I went around to the back of the internet cafe, retrieved the black down jacket, found a deserted corner, smashed Luki Yankian's mobile phone and tablet, and threw the parts everywhere. On the way back to school, I threw the hammer into the bushes and stuffed the black down jacket into the green box for used clothes. After processing everything, I lay down on the dormitory bed. The tense nerves relaxed and I almost collapsed. When I woke up the next day, everything was calm and no one came to see me. The only difference is that I have a lot more knowledge about the postgraduate entrance examination in my mind. It wasn't until the third day that my roommate, Luki Yankian's high school classmate, learned that something had happened to Luki Yankian. She told us with a look of panic on her face. Her high school classmate was killed. There seems to be a robber near the school. It is said that the method is very cruel, and no one has been caught yet. She reminded us to pay attention to safety recently, and not to return to the dormitory too late at night. I looked very sorry and worried and nodded one after another. Later, I searched for relevant reports online, but basically there was no follow-up. It is only said that the police are currently doing their best to investigate, and the general public is asked to actively provide clues and pay attention to precautions. I temporarily relaxed and began to prepare for the postgraduate examination a few days. 8. Until I took the re-examination in April, Luki Yankian's case had not been solved. Thanks to Luki Yankian, despite some stumbling during the interview, I passed smoothly. Look at the names on the proposed admission list. Luki Yankian's face couldn't help but appear in front of my eyes. He has short black hair, delicate features, and a pair of glasses on his small nose. The whole person looks very cute. It's just a pity that her life has ended here. The previous case was at its peak. A video has been circulated on the internet. In the video, Luke Yankian's parents cried in front of the camera while holding the portrait. The comments below, without exception, all condemned and cursed the inhumane murderer. That's me. But I personally don't think it matters. If scolding you can make these people feel better, I don't mind sacrificing it. I had some concerns at first. He was afraid that the case would become too hot and his whereabouts that night would be exposed. But later it turned out that I thought too much. After only 4 or 5 days, no one on the internet cared about this case anymore. The summer after college graduation, I visited several cities in the south. It can be regarded as an explanation to Chenarong and INE.AFT or the semester started. The life of a graduate student was busier than I imagined. Not only do you have to attend classes every day, you also have to take time to intern at a law firm and come back to write reports. Since my undergraduate degree was not in law, I had to study for 3 years as a graduate student. This is almost torture to me. To be honest, it is too painful to memorize those legal provisions. I envy my mentor very much. His name is Joe Young. He is in his 40s, holds the title of professor, and is a part-time director of the Law Society. He has published many important papers and knows various legal provisions by heart. I often think that it would be great if I could inherit Joe Yang's knowledge. In that case, my future study and life will definitely be much smoother. But which method should be used to kill Joe Young makes me more difficult. Methods like Luke Yankian's will definitely not work. The reason why I was able to escape the police investigation was partly because I was a complete stranger to Luke Yankian, and the police could not investigate me. But Joe Young was different. If he is killed, I will definitely be targeted. We still have to find a way to disguise it as an accident. After a period of observation, I noticed that Joe Young suffers from high blood pressure. And he often attends some dinner parties. I formed a very daring plan in my mind. Just when I was thinking about how to do it, Joe Young actually took the initiative to provide me with an opportunity. One night, Joe Young called me to the office on the pretext of supervising the thesis. There are only 2 of us in the office. He smelled of alcohol and put his arm on my shoulder intentionally or unintentionally. I couldn't help but sneer in my heart. Unexpectedly, Joe Young, who usually looks serious, turned out to be like this behind his back. But this is good. It saves me the trouble of approaching him. After supervising the thesis, Joe Young took my hand and asked me if I was interested in continuing to study for a PhD with him. He said that I was very qualified and talented, and I would definitely be able to accomplish something in the future. Almost laughed at this statement. I resisted the urge to laugh and expressed my interest. Joe Young was immediately overjoyed and asked me to go to his home another day to have an in-depth chat. I readily agreed. 3 days later in the evening, I came to Joe Yang's house as promised. He was very charming, arranged a table of Western food, and opened a bottle of red wine. This actually saved me a lot of trouble. During the meal, Joe Young kept complaining to me that his ex-wife did not understand him. He had been divorced from his ex-wife for many years. I expressed my understanding and comforted him not to be too sad. He held my hand and vowed that he would not treat me badly. I smiled and kept pouring him wine. Finally, while Joe Young got up and went to the bathroom, I poured the medicinal powder I had prepared in advance into his wine glass. I saw Joe Young raising his glass and drinking it down in one gulp without realizing it. I finally breathed a sigh of relief. After finishing the meal, Joe Young couldn't wait to get down to business. I told him not to worry and made an excuse to clean up the dining table to cover up the traces of my presence. After cleaning up, I immediately put on another face. He pushed Joe Young away unceremoniously and signaled him to be more respectful. Joe Young was stunned for a moment and looked at me in confusion. I completely took off my disguise, glanced at Joe Young with disgust, and said deliberately, "You don't even look at yourself in the mirror. You're as fat as a pig. It's disgusting." Joe Yang's face turned red with anger and he stared at me fiercely. "Shoo, yeah, how dare you talk to me like this?" I sarcastically said. "Aren't you just an old man that no one wants anymore? What's so great about you?" Under Joe Yang's shocked eyes, I slammed the door and left without looking back. At this point the plan is only half complete. The most critical part is whether Joe Young will take blood pressure lowering medicine after being angered by me. This is out of my control. I can only leave it to fate. If only God weren't on my side. I may be sad in the days to come. I had to consider whether I should take risks and take extreme measures. That night, I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. Until about 1 o'clock in the morning. Countless and complex knowledge poured into my mind. Let me wake up instantly. It took me a whole night to digest all that knowledge. It's just something that surprised me. In addition to professional knowledge, Joe Young also knows a lot of other messy things. It was such an eye-opener for me. A few days later, our school announced Joe Yang's obituary. I heard from some rumors that Joe Young had a disulfiram reaction because he took drugs after drinking alcohol. That night he called an ambulance himself, but he still couldn't be revived. At the same time, I also learned that Joe Young was not divorced at all. He was simply separated from his wife for a long time. At the funeral, I met Joe Yang's wife. She showed no trace of sadness. It feels like you were on a mission. At the same time, many articles accusing him were circulated on the internet. This is not the first time Joe Young has done this kind of thing to coax a female student. It's just that he used various means to suppress it before thinking about it. This way, I might have done a good ing.elev and .with Joe Yang's professional knowledge. I was successfully admitted to the Ph.D. program after graduating with a master's degree. I originally planned to stay in school and teach after completing my Ph.D. Unexpectedly, at this time, something suddenly happened to my body. After finishing my Ph.D., my physical condition became worse and worse. I often feel unusually tired. At first I thought I was just tired. But I soon realized it wasn't that simple. After a week of rest, I wasn't feeling any better. I could clearly feel myself getting weaker. Every time I wake up in the morning and look at the messy hair on the pillow, I feel heart palpitations. I went to several hospitals for physical examinations, but no problems were found. The doctor just advised me to take more rest. But I know very well that it is definitely not because of rest. Those doctors were definitely not telling me the truth. I had to find a way to save myself. At this moment, I can no longer care about so much. So when I got rid of the first doctor, I bought myself some medicine based on the knowledge in my head. But my condition did not improve at all, but became more and more serious. I started losing a lot of hair. Every joint in the body seemed to be rusty. After walking a few steps, I stopped to rest. I thought the doctor was not qualified enough. Then he set his sights on another old professor with superb medical skills. I took a lot of pills and tried countless things. But it still didn't work. I could only watch as I withered away. But nothing can be done. Until another devastating morning. I numbly picked up the medicine bottle and was about to take the medicine. The dusty memories surged for no reason. It made me stiff. My hands trembled, and I discovered something to my horror. These are the medicines I take now. It was a drug that my mother took all year round when she was alive. It seems about the same. In an instant, I felt as if I was locked in a giant block of ice. All warmth and strength to move was lost.twelv. In order to confirm the doubts in my heart, I forced myself to cheer up. Bought the earliest train and rushed home. I haven't been home for a long time since I started my Ph.D. The dust in the house. I rushed straight into my mother's bedroom. In all these years, I haven't touched anything my mother left behind. I opened the storage box again. There are still some of those medicines my mother bought before. Although the packaging box is different from today. But I still recognized it immediately. The medicines my mother took before were similar to what I take now. What on earth is it? I don't know why, but I recall the way my mother looked when she was lying on the hospital bed before she died. I felt a faint chill running up my spine. All kinds of scattered and trivial fragments are tumbling into a whirlpool. Put my thinking into confusion. At this time, there was a sudden knock on the door outside the house. I dragged my exhausted body to open the door. I saw two men in police uniforms standing at the door. One of the policemen took out a pair of cold handcuffs and cuffed them on my wrists. Lu Jin, we suspect that you are the murderer of the two murders. Please cooperate with our investigation. At this moment, I was completely despairing and had no intention of resisting, so I obeyed and was taken into the police car. I knew I was going to die. Struggles and excuses are in vain. During the investigation, I did not hide anything. He told the whole story of how he killed the two doctors. The motivation I gave was that I was dissatisfied with the diagnosis results of those two doctors. However, after recording the transcript, I asked the officer Lu, who interrogated me, to help me investigate a matter. About my dad's death. In my memory, when I was 5 years old, my dad got drunk at night and accidentally fell into the river on the way home and drowned. But now I feel that my dad's death was probably not an accident. Officer Lu seems to be a good guy. Although he was confused by my request, and more than 20 years had passed since the accident, he agreed to check it out for me. More than a month later, Officer Lu came to me and said that he had indeed found something. Officer Lu told me that he found several people who drank with my father that night. One of them recalled that my dad did drink too much that night. They wanted to call a taxi for my dad, but he thought it was expensive and said it would be okay, and someone would pick him up. The person my dad is talking about should be my mom. But after the accident, my mother said that she had something to do that night and did not go to pick up my dad. My dad came back by himself. Now there is no way to verify these details. But Officer Lu also told me another piece of news. My mother seems to have proposed divorcing my father many times. The reason was domestic violence against my father. This incident even caused quite a stir in my dad's workplace. It's just that I was too young at the time and had no memory of it at all. Officer Lu said that was all he could find. Finally, he asked me why I specifically asked him to investigate the accident. Do you suspect that my mother killed my father and then pretended it was an accident? I pursed my lips. There is no answer to this question. In the eve of the trial, I was rushed to a provincial hospital for treatment due to multiple organ failure throughout my body. Lying on the hospital bed. I know clearly that my time is numbered. At the same time, I also roughly understood the price to pay for using that ability. If my guess is correct, while using that ability to inherit the opponent's knowledge. The time it took for the other party to master this knowledge was also attached to me. For example, the knowledge I acquired after killing my grandma, such as cooking, washing clothes, and farming, may only take a few years. And the knowledge that my junior high school classmate, and Chen Rong mastered, converted into time, is 3 years and 6 years. Lu Qianqian will be 10 years later. Zhou Yang may be 20 years. The time spent by the last two doctors may reach 30 years or even more. In other words, my 27-year-old body has endured this for nearly 100 years. That's why it leads to such severe organ failure. As for my mother, she must have encountered a similar situation to me. My dad used to be a high school teacher. The knowledge he possesses, converted into time, is estimated to last 20 or 30 years. Looking back now, there are many places that felt weird in the past. All are answered at this moment. Maybe after learning about my college entrance examination results. My mother guessed what I had done. That's why she strongly opposed my studying medicine. That's why she deliberately distanced herself from me. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. What did she want to say to me before she died? Do you want to remind me not to use that ability again? But with what mood should she speak? Do you want to tell your daughter? Is her mother, whom she has always loved, the one who killed her father with her own hands? I tried to imagine how my mother felt back then. Regret, worry, despair, but powerlessness. In the end, my mother paid her price. Next, it's my turn. To this day, I don't feel guilty about what I did. I don't feel like I did anything wrong. People are selfish. I just want a better life for myself. In this world, there are countless people doing the same thing as me. Every moment they either rely on money or power, wantlessly depriving others of their lives so that you can live a better life for yourself. In my opinion, there is no such thing as good people and bad people in this world. Humans have always been such ugly and evil creatures. Everyone is bound to pay a price. It's just a matter of time. 14. In a daze of consciousness. The door to the intensive care unit seemed to be opened. I struggled to open my eyes. I saw a woman who looked like a nurse, holding the hand of a little boy, standing in front of my hospital bed. I don't know how she got in. Don't know what she is going to do. The nurse took off her mask, revealing a delicate and beautiful face. She said her name was Jean Anran. From an organization called Brave New World. Every member of the organization has unique and special abilities. They want to create a new world, free from strife and sin. I heard the woman say, "Your abilities are very important to us. It's just a pity that you are not perfect enough." Jean Anran pushed the little boy in front of me. "This kid's abilities are very similar to yours. Every time he kills someone, he gains the other person's abilities." Jean Anran smiled and narrowed his eyes. "Isn't it amazing?" But then she curled her lips in dissatisfaction and said, "But it's a pity that he can only be compatible with 2 abilities. But it's enough. This child already has the ability of immortality in his body. With yours, he will soon become a god." I tried to turn my stiff neck. The little boy has a face with regular features. Double eyelids, thick eyelashes. The young pupils shine like obsidian, making people unable to help but stare. "Go ahead." Jean Anran pushed the little boy gently. I watched him walk to a machine next to the hospital bed. After a few operations, my pupils suddenly contracted. I started to have trouble breathing. I kept my eyes open as hard as I could. I want to remember this little boy's face. If you can. I really want to see this God, who is about to bear everything. What will this terrible world look like? 15. The second before losing consciousness. The little boy walked up to me. Closed my eyes for me. I wonder. What a gentle and pitiful boy.